Good afternoon, everyone. This is Hoda. I will be helping you out today, starting the webinar with Steve Blais, juggling hats, playing the role of business analyst and project manager at the same time. Thank you for joining us. Let me first start by going through some housekeeping rules. The slides will be available on our SlideShare page. The link will be emailed to you, and the recording of the webinar will be available to view, and the link will also be emailed to you. Please take the time to complete the post-webinar survey that will pop up at the end of the webinar. You can type your questions throughout the session. Steve will be happy to answer them along. And time will be allocated also at the end of the webinar for you to to ask more questions and for Steve to answer all your questions. Let me first start by introducing Steve Blais. Steve has 47 years experience in information technologies as a consultant and author and speaker, mentor and coach. He has performed as a programmer, project manager, business analyst, system analyst, general manager and tester over that time. He has also been in an executive position for several startup companies. He writes a monthly column for Business Analysis Times and is a frequent contributor to allpm.com, Modern Analyst, and other publications. He has presented the keynote addresses at PMI PASSRIM conference in Tokyo 2012, PMI South America and Sao Paulo in 2011, and IPMA European Conference in 2013, and other conferences as well. He's the author of Business Analysis, Best Practices for Success, John Wiley, 2011. I'll now leave you with Steve Blais to start the webinar. Enjoy your time.
Hello, and welcome. One of the issues that we find nowadays with the economies being what they are is that many business analysts and many project managers end up having to do the same job. So you were a business analyst and they say, hey, we're going to have you be the project manager as well. So let's talk about that specific predicament of having to do both. We'll start off by just talking about the ideal relationship between the business analyst and the project manager, two different people. What we look at is Janus. Now, Janus is a Roman god. You can see the picture there. Janus has two faces, one head, two faces, one body. The Romans used Janus as the god of beginnings, the god of ends, and the god of entries and doorways. So even now in Italy and other areas around the Mediterranean, you'll find people putting statues and pictures of Janus near the doorway so that the one face faces out and the other face faces in. The face facing out is looking for dangers to the house and protects against those dangers. The face facing in is looking for dangers within the house and protects against those, like a fire or a kid falling down. Two faces, one brain. Well, how does that relate to project management and business analysis? The business analyst is looking outward toward the organization. The business analyst is looking at the business, what else is going on, and providing that kind of protection, if you will, getting the messages, the change requests, the dissatisfactions, the additional requirements, a controversy or conflict among the business. The business analyst is relating to that and handling those things. The project manager, on the other hand, is facing inward toward the project team, toward the technical aspects, making sure the technical things work on the project, dealing with inter-project issues like with another project or a database administrator. And of course, the intra-project, the team conflicts. Each of them could be occupied full-time in their own particular view of looking in that direction, but note that they're of one mind. The business analyst and the project manager of one mind. They both have the same goal, solve the business problem. Project manager has the additional goal of bringing the project in on time and within budget. The business analyst has the goal of getting the business problem solved. So, having the two is clearly going to be better. That is to say, two different people. Regardless of whether you have 1, 2, 6, or 10, you still need someone playing the role of business analyst and someone playing the role of project manager as long as you have a project. Now, business analysts, although many people think that, gee, we had business analysts just started in the late 90s or even the mid 2000s, and some companies are just starting for the first time with business analysts. Business analysts have been around since business. The first time somebody said, I think I'm going to sell a fish to that guy over there, they did business analysis. They decided how much the fish was going to cost and what they would accept in return, and how many fish they could catch and give away. So business analysis has to be there for every business project. Every business problem requires business analysis. When we decide to solve the problem with a project, we need also a project manager. Two roles. And it's better if each role is a different person. Why? Well, because they provide a counterbalance to each other. The business analyst is looking at solving the business problem regardless of the cost and how long it takes. The project manager is looking at making sure it finishes on time and within budget and doing as much as they can within that constraint. So they balance each other out. They keep each other honest. The project manager says, gee, I'm going to have to cut something in order to meet the deadline. The business analyst says, hold on, you got to solve the problem. If you cut that or that, you're not going to solve the problem. The customer's not going to like it. The business analyst says, oh, we got to add this. The customers like it. It'll help us solve the problem better. And the project manager says, yeah, you could do that, but it's going to take you beyond the budget. We can't do it. So they keep each other honest. It helps each of them become more specialized. So the project manager can be, by experience, a better project manager, and the business analyst can be a better business analyst. They back each other up. The project manager knows the project and the solution. The business analyst knows the problem and the solution. At any given time when they're sharing that one brain, even though they're looking in different directions, they're able to back each other up. Project manager who wants to go on a 3-day vacation, the business analyst can step in. Together, they will ensure a quality delivery. Now, there are two levels of quality here. Finishing the project on time and within budget has a specific meaning and quality to the organization. Solving the problem in a quality way so that the people will use the result to solve the problem is another level of quality. Putting them both together means you're going to get an absolutely high quality delivery. If there's only one person, you're not going to have many recorded conversations. You're not going to have a trace of what decisions were made, when they were made, and why they were made, and whether they were successful. When you have two people, your recordings tend to get recorded. So if I'm the business analyst, I'm talking to the project manager, I'm taking notes. Project manager is probably taking notes as well. I'm liable to take better and more complete notes when I'm talking with the customers because I've got to report back to the project manager. If it's just me, I don't have to report back to the project manager, why bother? So we're going to have a better history for purposes of retrospective and learning. And, of course, with two different people, you get a significantly increased pool of ideas and opinions. You don't have just one and just my head, but two working together. So clearly it's a good idea, but let's look at what's going on here. Now, if I took the jobs, the tasks, the activities of a project manager and business analyst, they would be pretty much the same. Business analyst has to define requirements. Well, project manager defines requirements. Business analyst does risks, so does a project manager. Business analyst defines a solution, so does the project manager. Business analyst tests, so does the project manager. So forth. The difference is the focus. The business analyst is focused on the business. the product, what is produced by the project. The project manager is focused on the project, solution, doing it. The business analyst defines what we're going to do. The project manager defines how we're going to do it. So we think of the business analyst as sitting in the problem domain with the customers, with the business. We think of the project manager being in the solution domain with the technology, with the team, with the others who are going to affect that solution. Now, this particular illustration, I've had some conversations with some others, agile people and business analysts, who say that that image kind of separates the solvers from the people with the problem. It doesn't really. The problem is I can't make this three-dimensional for you. What you have to imagine is that the problem domain has a problem. The website isn't quite selling as much as we would like. We'd like to sell more product from that website. So we have a problem. We go into the solution and they make some changes and put some software in there. When they finish, that solution is now the new problem domain. In other words, if I had three dimensions, you'd see the problem domain with the solution domain on top of it. When we got the solution, that becomes a new problem domain, and we put another solution. In other words, it's all the same. It's just that we're looking at a different focus. We're focusing on either the problem from the business analyst perspective or the solution from the project manager's perspective. Now, the division between them is not clear-cut, and clearly it overlays. But in reality, while the project manager and the solution team are solving that problem, this problem continues. Oh, we are not getting paid right, so we're going to continue to get not paid right until the problem is solved. It would be great if we could add this new function and feature. We don't have the function and feature until the project is done. So the problem continues while the problem is being solved, and the solution is going to change while the problem is being solved. Well, you know that idea we had to do the website, that's pretty cool, but how hard would it be to do this? Not hard at all. Okay, let's do that. So we change the solution. When we change the solution, we obviously change the impacts, which means that while that solution is changing, while the problem continues, while impacts are changing, we need the business analyst to see what that impact is and what does change, who is now affected. And we need the project manager to continue with the problem. Now, we say, well, obviously then, there can't ever be a situation where there's only one person. We've got to have a person being a business analyst and a person being a project manager. Why would you do anything different? Well, because we don't got enough money. I can't afford, you got a project here, this is what I can afford, we got to get the solution, I can't afford a business analyst. The project might have very low risk. It's a 2-month effort, we've got to generate 3 new reports. If it doesn't come in on time, that's not a big deal. So, hey, one person can do it all. You got project manager, you got one programmer and a tester. So, okay, that probably can work because there's not that much. You're only dealing with a couple of customers, no problem. In some cases, it is a psychological thing from management. I'm your boss, I'm the vice president, and I see that you're the business analyst and you're knowing everything about this particular issue. It's a annuities problem in a bank or an investment firm. And I see that you understand it explicitly because you just talked to all the people, you've written the requirements. Now I need somebody to run this project. Who better to run the project than somebody who knows what's going on? So I say, oh, why don't you take it? I don't consider whether you can manage. I don't consider whether you can handle authority. I don't consider whether you know anything about project management, only that you know the world of annuities. Similarly, you might be a project manager and you're talking to the customers and I see that you're getting along with the customers and I say, well, why don't you get the requirements too? Manage the project, but you can step out and do the requirements. It could be also a legitimate thing. An R&D project, for example, doesn't have a deadline typically and doesn't typically have budget. You work on it for a while, you come up with something new, you say we need money to follow this, pursue this, and they change the budget. In that case, there's not really that much need for a project manager to keep you on time and within budget, since they don't exist. So you got a little bit of project management, a little bit of management, making sure things have a little bit of authority, but the emphasis is on the business analyst. What is it that we need to do? What are we trying to accomplish? What requirements are necessary? And the rare situation, such as a space shot, sending the astronauts to the moon, for example, where the requirements are defined in front and they are stable, they're not going to change. So the business analyst isn't necessarily needed. The business analyst doesn't go out and say to the customers and the users, so tell me, what do you think about the pull of gravity? What do you think it should be? No, we know what it is. It's calculated. We know how much thrust needs to get the weight of the fuel out of the atmosphere. So I don't have to go ask to find that out. It's already there. In that case, the emphasis is on the project manager role. And I might sit down, we might change a requirement here or there as something new comes up, but basically all I have to be is a project manager. So there are situations where it's legitimate and somewhat legitimate to have one person. Now, whether it's legitimate or not, unfortunately, that's the way things are. So let's talk about some of the inherent problems that you're going to deal with if you are given that dual role of being both project manager and business analyst. And I tell you this not so that you'll go running away and screaming, no, I don't want to do this, but so that you can be aware of where the problems might be. And I'll talk about that and some other issues, and then we'll talk about what you can do to help overcome them. Can you get rid of them? No. It's not going to happen because we're trying to do two things, two people looking two ways with two faces with one person. We don't have two faces. We only got one. We can only look in one direction at a time. So the first issue, our attention is split. And this is attention to other people. So the team needs you to help make a decision or to resolve a conflict, and you're out dealing with a customer. You're in a meeting where you're defining requirements. You're in a meeting where you're acting as a mediator between two business units. While you're doing that, and it might take all day, the team is left unattended, as it were. If they have a problem, everything might stop until you get back. Similarly, if you're dealing with the team and the customers need to talk to you about something that changes, you're not available. And the customer goes to management, management goes to your management, and then they yell at you because you weren't there, but you have to be with your team. So right off the bat, you've got an attention issue. You've got a knowledge and experience gap. No matter how much you try to do both, you're going to be more skilled and capable in one or the other role. You communicate better. You negotiate better. You mediate better. You understand body language and you can talk to people and convince them to do things. You love the research involved with getting to get people and asking them questions. You don't like telling people what to do. You're more of a business analyst. You can do both roles, but you're always going to be leaning toward, and when it comes to, okay, I got to spend an hour doing one-on-ones with my team, telling them how good or bad they are, or I can spend the hour investigating this part of the solution. I think I'll do that. Similarly, the other side, you really like giving directions, checking up on people, talking to them, motivating them to get the job done, and you really don't like going talking to the customers because they always change their mind. In that case, you'd be more inclined toward project management. They are, despite everyone's efforts to do the contrary, they are two different types of people. The project manager has to be able to wield authority and do it well. The business analyst has to be able to not have authority and still succeed. Clearly, if you are accountable to the customers, as a definition of business analyst would be the customer representative on the solution team. So you are accountable as the representative to the customer, and you are accountable to your boss in IT. You got a lot of accountability. You got two bosses, and that doesn't work. And of course, if you're one person, you can't do the checks and balances. So be aware if you get these two, of some of these pitfalls. Be aware of the familiarity. If you are more inclined toward business analysis, you'll tend to go in that direction. So you have to be aware of that. And you have to be aware of the opposite too. Some people say, gee, I can't pay more attention to my business analyst. I've got to be equal. So they overcompensate and be more of a project manager to the detriment of the business analyst side. Advocacy. That means I am an advocate for the customer or I'm an advocate for the team. The project manager is an advocate for the team. When it comes to a decision about adding some new feature to the project, the team says, no, that can't be done because I don't have the time. The project manager should advocate for that team, should push back. But if you're the project manager and the business analyst is there advocating for the customer, you got a problem because you're advocating against yourself. You're having a negotiation with yourself. Hey, Steve, we got to add this extra feature. Oh, no, Steve, you're not going to add that extra feature. I don't have the time and the team said that can't be done. No, Steve, you've got to do it because the project won't work. No, Steve, and of course that could get rather confusing. Clearly, it's a conflict of interest right there. An example is a business analyst usually works on the business case. The business case defines the problem and does not define a time frame or a budget. We might do estimates of those, but we're not going to do that. Now, that way, when the project manager comes in, the project manager can look at what needs to be done by the approved business case and say, good, if that was what needs to be done, then this is how long it's going to take, this is how much it's going to cost. But what if it's one person? So you got a business analyst and a project manager. The project manager knows the project manager is going to manage that project. What is a successful project manager? They get the job done on time within budget. So the project manager has to define the scope, what has to be done to solve the problem. They have a conflict of interest because they're going to try to fit that scope so to make their job easier and be a success as a project manager. Okay, conflict of interest. I mentioned conflict resolution. It's difficult to resolve a conflict between the business and IT when you're both business and IT. Now, the long-range view is what the business analyst has. The deadline view is the project manager. The project manager must be focused on the deadline constantly. Same thing as on the cost. We've got to bring this in on time. Now, that doesn't mean you break everything to get it on time. That means if there's a legitimate reason for changing the deadline, the project manager has to know, I cannot make it. There's no way we can make this deadline. My earned value says no. Everything says no. I need to go back to management for additional time. Everything's on that deadline, short term. The business analyst has a long-range view of the entire organization that he's dealing with, the annuities department. This is just one change of an overall process improvement of the annuities department. After this project is done, the business analyst will be working with annuities on the next project and the next one. More of a process perspective. That right there is a conflict. Thinking in terms of getting it done by Friday and thinking in terms of, well, this is just one of many. It's hard to get done by Friday. If I keep thinking it's got to be done by Friday, I can't think of what comes after that. So there is a pitfall in looking at one or the other. It's difficult. And of course, the business analyst is cross-organizational. You're looking at the impacts on all projects and all people and all departments around the organization. The project manager cannot afford to do that. So if you're leaning toward the long-range view and the cross-organizational view because your background is business analysis, you're liable to not get the thing done on time or maybe even not get it done at all. Ultimately, it's a what versus how. The business analyst defines what, the project manager is defining how we're going to do it. And the pitfall is getting those two confused and having a meeting where the customers want to know what, and you start talking about the technical how, and of course the meeting falls apart. Similarly, the developers are looking for how we're going to do this. Let's see the details in the blueprint. Tell us what to code, and you're talking to them about what it is that we're solving in the big picture. So these are the pitfalls. Each one of them can cause a problem in the project. So what you're here to hear is what we do about it. That first bullet there, wear different hats. A little story here. Back when I was in and out of project management back about 40, 50 years ago, when I was first project manager, I was a project manager for a while, and then I became something else, and then I came back as a project manager. One of the first times I was a project manager, I had already in this company been a tester. I'd been a requirements person. They didn't have business analysts, or at least not called business analysts in those days. I had been a systems analyst, and I had done pretty much everything in IT, which I have. And so they made me a project manager. And for some reason, while I was walking and doing my thing, being a project manager, someone would ask a question. Well, what do you think about these requirements? And I got to saying, well, if I put my requirements hat on, I'd give you an answer this way. And somebody else would ask a question and say, wearing my project manager's hat, it was kind of a funny thing to say. And being a nerd, you know, I just played it. And I can't tell you why I did that. One morning, I come into my office, and I'm sitting in a very small office, and there's a 4-drawer file cabinet opposite my desk. On the top of the 4-drawer file cabinet were 5 or 6 baseball hats, each one a different color. On the baseball caps were little letters. One said PM, one said RA, Requirements Analyst, one said SA, Systems Analyst, one said QA for Test Quality Assurance, and so forth. And a little note on my desk, handwritten, it said, from now on, wear the right hat, or something like that. And they meant it as a joke, making fun of my phrase of, if I were to answer that, I'm wearing this hat, I would answer it this way. Well, I'm a nerd, right? So I wasn't going to let it just sit. So I got a coat hanger, fashioned a little hook on my belt, and the hats all have this little tab in the back for sizing, and I put them all on the belt, and I walked around with hats on my waist between my 2 pagers. And I wore the hat. So I typically put the project manager hat on, and somebody would come up and ask me a question about testing, and I'd say, hold on a minute. And I'd get the hats out, and I'd get the QA hat on, I'd put it on. It's kind of a little ceremony, and I put the hats back on my belt, and I answered the question. And it was fun. You know, it was just for a joke, right? You guys think you're funny giving me hats? Well, I'll show you. I'm going to wear the hats. And it was a pretty, I mean, it went, the whole project team got a kick out of it. But this is what I found out. When I physically changed hats, I found that I was also changing my mindset. So when I took the project manager hat off, in that 30 seconds to put the QA hat on, I found that I was focusing on QA. I was able to answer the question from a QA perspective. Now, cognitive behavioral psychology has done experiments, and they have shown that a physical change causes you to change your mental state. So when I say wear different hats, I don't suggest wearing different hats. The project, incidentally, was a success, not because I was wearing the hats or anything, and what wasn't really because of me, I'm sure. And management said, Steve, we'd like you to do another project for us. Take this project, but lose the hats. We'll tolerate the fact that you had the hats, it was funny, but no more hats. So that was at the end. I put the hats in a box, and I had them for years. Now, a couple of other tips. The tip there is to do something physical. You know, where you have a jacket, and you wear a jacket when you're the project manager, and take the jacket off when you're business analyst, or the other way around. Something, because when you do it, if you always wear a jacket when you're the business analyst, and never when you're the project manager, psychologically, when you put that jacket on, you will think like a business analyst. When you attend meetings, one of the pitfalls is when you're trying to do conflict and so forth, is you're trying to do both roles at the same time. Instead, if you have a meeting where you are the project manager status meeting, you go in only as the project manager. And you let people know, I am here as a project manager. If someone asks a business analyst question, you table it. Don't answer it. I'm sorry, the business analyst isn't here. Now, again, that could be a little touchy. It might be something you really should answer. But you want to keep that focus while you're the project manager, and you want the people who are talking to you in that meeting to address you as the project manager. You have authority. Remember, when the business analyst is running a meeting, the business analyst has no authority. So when you moderate or facilitate meetings, be only one. So if you're going to do a project management meeting on status, and somebody brings up an issue that needs business analysts to look at it, you say, fine, let's take care of that after this meeting. So you do a problem-solving meeting after you finish your status meeting, a separate meeting. People might stay, the same people might be there, but you terminate one meeting and start the other. So everyone else can also help focus. When somebody comes in and asks you a question, make it clear. They might be asking you for your opinion as a business analyst. What would the business think about this? You, because you just came out of a project management meeting, answer the question as a project manager. Rather than an opinion of how the business should be treated, you say, we're going to be on time, or we're going to be within budget, or we can't do it. Similarly, the other way, if they're looking for a decision and a business analyst that cannot make a decision because a business analyst doesn't have authority, and you don't make the decision, you would render an opinion. If they think that you're the project manager, they'll think that you are giving a dictate. So when they ask you a question, unless they say, what's the status with the project, ask, so are you talking to the business analyst or the project manager here? So there's no equivocation, there's no ambiguity. The answer you give will be answering the question they asked. This is something you might do even if you're only a business analyst, you only got one role, a project manager or a business analyst. Defer the decisions. That means, Steve, I need an answer to this question. And even if the answer is fairly straightforward, you say, well, hold on, let me think about it, or let me get back to you. Now, and you do this for all decisions. Steve, are we going to lunch today? Let me get back to you on that. I'm being a little silly there, but Steve, shall we go to lunch today? Yeah, I think we can do that. Now, it sounds as though I'm thinking about whether it's possible to do lunch or not. Actually, I just counted to 5. What you're doing when you're deferring decision is 2 things. One is the person who asked the question or asked you for the decision feels more valued in that you're taking time as opposed to coming with an answer right away. The second is you're allowing your brain to evaluate from all perspectives to make sure that when you answer this question, it is from the right perspective. This question is one that should be answered as a business analyst. Don't jump to an answer from a project management perspective. Gee, the project manager would say this, but the business analyst might say this. I'd better think about that. So deferring it gives you that option, that space for you to make sure, in fact, that you are answering it from the right perspective. Another thing to do, especially from the project management perspective, you've got a team, 4 or 5 people, maybe you got a systems analyst or lead programmer or something like that, somebody a little bit more experienced. So you assign them. You say, I would like you to be my second in command. I'm still going to do BA. You're not going to be the PM. You're not going to be the BA, but you're going to be the second in command on the project management side. There may be somebody else who will be second in command on a quality assurance person is the best one there, a tester. Okay, you're going to be the second in command in terms of the business analyst. I want you to take my place if I can't make it. Okay, now that gets you many things. Obviously, if you're going to be out with the business on requirements, you've got your lieutenant back there handling your job as a project manager. Now, they are going to like that role, as you know, in my experience, because there's no responsibility or accountability assigned to it. They're just representing you. If they do something wrong, you're the one who's going to answer for it. They know that. So they're more comfortable doing it. It also helps train them so that they are fledgling project manager or fledgling business analyst. But the big thing is sanity checking. If I assign, which I have done, if I assign the QA person as a business analyst surrogate, if you will, my backup, my second, my assistant, and I start doing something, I'm sitting in a meeting, and I start telling the team, the business, well, we have a deadline to reach. The lieutenant, my lieutenant business analyst can say, hold on, because that's not how a business analyst operates. That's a project manager. Can remind me, hey, we're business analysts. Oh, yeah. We're here to get the information, not tell them what to do. When we have a project management meeting, then I can tell them what to do. So assigning a lieutenant, and they may not have that much, they may have a couple of hours a week that they may have to spend helping you out. But it certainly does help. Here's one that really works. Again, using that same psychological thing that the cognitive scientists found out, that by changing your physical attributes, you change your mindset. Similarly, by placing the business analyst's stuff on the right-hand side of the desk, project manager on left, or you can do it the other way if you want, it doesn't make any difference. Put the business analyst in all your information on business analysis in blue folders. Your minutes of the meetings with the customer, draft requirements, sketches of screens, and so forth. Put them in blue folders. Your timesheets for the team, your one-on-one notes, your evaluations of the team, your assessments, your Gantt charts. All that you put in red folders on the other side of the desk. What will happen automatically? You pull out a blue folder, you'll start thinking business analysis. You pull out a red folder, you'll start thinking project management. The same exact thing as when you sit down, you put your jacket on, you're a business analyst. You take your jacket off, you're a project manager. Put the PM hat on, you're a project manager. Put the BA hat on, you're a business analyst. You could also become schizophrenic. I don't know how one would become schizophrenic, but if you're already schizophrenic, that'll help. Now you can, as long as you can switch, you can say, you know, like that movie where they show you the Queen of Spades and the guy goes and kills somebody, right? So being a schizophrenic, you have to be able to switch off. So you start being a project manager and somebody asks you from a business analyst perspective and you say, Shazam, okay, let me talk to you about business analysis. And it could get really funny when you start arguing with yourself. It won't be that bad because people probably think you're just talking on the cell phone. So all of these tricks, and they are literally just tricks, because ultimately you really need to have two people, because you need to have those focuses and that separation to provide the single mind looking in both directions. The bottom line, if you want to do it successfully, if it can be done successfully at all, is to maintain the focus. When you are a project manager, focus on nothing but the project, getting everything done that's supposed to be done within this time frame and within this budget. When you're the business analyst, you focus on the product, the business problem, and how that's going to be solved so that in the end, when it's implemented, it is in fact solved. Are there any questions about being both a business analyst and a project manager at the same time, or, you know, questions about being a business analyst or being a project manager? What was that?
Hello again, this is Hoda. Yes, we've just got a question from Barak. Abdulrahim. The webinar will be available to view online. The link will be emailed to you. Okay, here is another question for Steve.
From Raj, it says, what if you notice that the project is being impacted due to user requirements? Which role should dominate? This is why you need both, because you're going to be in conflict. The business analyst first is going to talk to the business and ask a simple question. Do these new requirements go to solving the business problem? Now, that assumes one thing, and that is that the business analyst has defined the business problem that the business has agreed on first. So in the process, the business analyst process, way up front, we define what the business problem is that's being solved by this project. Now, it's fairly easy to say, do these requirements go to solving the problem? In many cases, because the person who wants the problem solved is the one who's asking for the additional work, the person says, no, it doesn't really. Maybe we should have another project later, or get the problem solved first. In other words, the person requesting these additional requirements decides not to. Simply by that one statement. Because underlying that says, if you add these requirements, we may not be able to solve your problem. This isn't really part of solving the problem, and you want us to solve your problem. So that's the business analyst role. If, in fact, the person comes back and says, well, yeah, they do, and this is why, and the business analyst says, yes, you're right. Okay, so this does go to solving the problem. Now we go to the project manager and say, we need to add this new requirement or these new requirements to solve the problem. And the project manager has to decide whether it can be done within the current budget or within the time frame. If not, we have two choices. If we cannot change the deadline, it's a regulation, for example, the business analyst must go back and negotiate with the business to say, what do we give up without losing the solution to the problem, and get this other stuff in. If the deadline is not hard and fast, the other option is the project manager goes to management to get additional time to get the additional requirements done. So it's again, one mind. Both project manager and business analyst are involved. Initially, it's dominated by business analysts, where we make sure the requirements are needed to solve the problem, and the next is dominated by the project manager, who decides whether we can do it. Okay. Yes, the copy will be available to you. Raman asked for the copy of it. It will be available online, and you'll get an email?
Yes.
An email with a link, and you click on the link, and that'll take you to the presentation. And that's the recording or just the slides?
All of it.
The whole thing. Everything I've said is going to be there. Any other questions? From, looks like Genyu. How does the project manager add value to the organization when the business analyst needs more to be done? Okay, you have two levels. One is solving the problem. Solving the problem is the most valuable. And the business analyst works with the business to make sure that, in fact, this is a problem, the solution of which will add value. A lot of times, and this is not pejorative against business people, but a lot of times they have ideas and things to do which really don't add a lot of value. Business analysts make sure that value is being added. So that's the first thing. By solving the problem, we increase sales, we decrease cost. The project manager has a deadline. Typically, the deadline is prior to we have what is called a value box. The top of the box shows cost, and the right-hand side, going left to right, shows the deadline. The cost ceiling is the maximum amount of money that can be spent on the project before we start losing value. In other words, it's no longer worthwhile doing. If we spend 1 penny over $1 million on this project, we start losing money. We'll never get it back. So usually the project is set to be at, say, $800,000. If we come in at $800,000, we're going to be $200,000 ahead. As for the deadline, if we do not release the new product by April 1st, the competition will beat us to the market and it's useless. We'll lose. So if April 1st of 2017 is the stale date, which is what we call it, we're probably going to schedule the project to be ended January 31st, 2 months in advance. If the project manager finishes the project on January 31st and we can release it to the public, we are 2 months ahead of the competition. There's value in that. So one aspect is simply solving the problem, getting a new product done that solves these things and the people will buy it. That's the business analyst's job. The project manager adds value by bringing it in on time according to the specifications. We've got 2 months ahead, $200,000 ahead. We bring it in on time. That's a value to the organization. We have brought it in ahead of the competition when we're going to make millions of dollars from this new product. There's a whole lot of value. Now, if the project manager brings it in 1 month after April 1st, 2017, it's still valuable. We still solve the problem, but the competition is out there first. So we're not going to make anywhere near the profit we intended to for the company. No value. So the project manager does, in fact, add value with those deadlines. It also adds value by being able to say to the business, you can't have that. Business analyst says, wow, that sounds really cool. Project manager says, no, not within the budget. There's a lot of value to that. So we don't get it half done or sloppily done so that it fails. So yes, the project manager, I know it sounds, if the business analyst is focusing on solving the problem, that's the value. But the project manager does add a lot of value. And again, you can see the intrinsic conflict between the two values being added. They both add value. Any other questions? Hopefully, if that didn't answer your question, please let me know and I'll try to answer it better. Any other questions? Yes, that is again why you want to have two different, the question is, the bias of the BA may cause the project to go over budget. How would you control this? And that's why you like to have two people. So the bias of the BA must be with the customer. The BA wants to, the customer is always right, the BA wants to make the customer happy. Obviously, the BA is spending the time with the customer. They see him every day. You don't want to make that person you see every day unhappy with you. So you're going to be inclined to favor the customer as a business analyst. Getting the problem solved, even if the problem expands a little bit and you have to do more and it's going to go over budget. Frankly, and you know, this is the way of life, the BA, as a BA, I am not concerned about the budget at all. The project manager says, here's the budget, this is what it's going to cost, or the business says, this is all I got to spend. I'm aware of it, and I tell the business, this is what you've got to spend. You can't buy a diamond if you only got the money for something else. You can't buy a Cadillac if all you got is Volkswagen money, type of thing. Other than that, though, it's not of interest to me how much it's going to take, unless the cost is a constraint. They want the problem solved. Really, they want it solved with any cost. If your sink is broken and water is going all over the floor of the bathroom and dripping downstairs and causing all sorts of problems, you're not going to say, well, I need to fix it, but I only have 20 to spend. You're going to get it fixed, whatever it costs. The business has a problem. The water is everywhere. They want it drained and fixed so it doesn't happen again. cost is not an object. However, of course, you have a project. Projects must have budgets. So the BA goes to the project manager and says, okay, this is what we need to solve the problem. The project manager says, all I got is this. That's all I can do. So they have to come up with a solution between them. What is the minimum we can do fitting within the budget that will still solve the problem? Now remember, when you open up the door, you tell a business unit, we're going to get in and work on this problem. Everybody in the business unit says, well, if they're here to drain the bathroom and fix the sink, why don't we have them put a shower head in, and, oh, we want to change the light bulbs in the ceiling, and I'd like a new window on the, without the things in them so I can see outside while I'm taking a bath, and, oh yeah, let's put a different chain on the toilet, and how about some new rugs? And you say, wait a minute, I'm the plumber, I came here to fix the pipes, but they're asking for all this other stuff. So the business analyst has got to say, again, does it go to solving the problem of the pipes and the water on the floor? The lights on the ceiling, don't do that. Are you sure you want to do that? Because if you do that, we can't solve the problem. You're still going to have water on your floor. So the business analyst is making sure. So when the business analyst comes in and says, this stuff is going to cause you to go over the budget, but you have to solve it, the project manager may not have any choice. Now, unfortunately, many business analysts don't operate that way. They simply listen to whatever the business says and come back to the project manager and says, we also need this. Now we need this. Now we need this. Because they hear them saying they need a light bulb. They hear them saying they need the shower fixed. So they come back to the project manager and say, we have to do this. The business analyst is not doing their job. So the project manager will say to the business analyst, do your job. Now, if you're doing both roles, and you're totally inclined to do whatever you're being told to do from the business, then you're not going to fit within the budget, period. So the project manager has to remind the business analyst, stick with the problem. We're here to solve the problem. We're here to fix the pipes. We can do the change to the shower and the rug on the floor and the lights in the ceiling in the next project. Okay? In other words, the project manager ultimately has to say no, and if it's the same person, you got to tell yourself no. But your question is, how would you control the BA? The bias of the BA is to remember that it is a bias. Hopefully that helped. Any other questions? We still got several minutes before the mandatory end. Before the deadline is achieved, we can solve some more business problems.
Hello again, folks. Well, this is to conclude the webinar today. I would like to thank you for joining us and for contributing with all these meaningful questions that actually helped everybody. Please do not forget to complete the post-webinar survey. That will help us a lot improve for the future. And also make sure to check out Steve Blais' courses on the website. He has a lot of upcoming courses that are extremely interesting. So thank you so much. I'll be closing down now. If anybody has any comments or last questions, please do so now. Okay, thank you very much for joining us, and I look forward to seeing you again on our courses and also on our upcoming webinars. Thank you.